Jake Donovan pushed open his front door, every muscle in his body begging for rest. Another brutal shift at Wilson Enterprises. Another day of being invisible. His daughter Sophie was at his sister's place for the night. The house should be silent. But it wasn't. He heard movement in the kitchen. The clink of dishes, water running, footsteps on his tile floor. His pulse kicked up. He moved down the hallway, his work boots heavy against the floor. The kitchen light was on. A woman stood at his sink, her back to him, washing his dishes. She turned, and Jake froze completely. Lara Wilson, the CEO of Wilson Enterprises, his boss's boss's boss. Standing in his kitchen wearing a simple white blouse, her hair falling loose around her shoulders, looking nothing like the untouchable executive he'd only seen from a distance. She looked directly at him, and the expression on her face made his stomach drop. Not surprise, not embarrassment, regret. "Mr. Donovan," she said quietly, setting down a plate. "I know you weren't expecting me." "What?" Jake's throat went dry. "What are you doing in my house?" Lara took a breath, her eyes glistening. "I came here to tell you the truth, about what's really been happening to you at work, about why you've been suffering." She paused, her voice barely steady. "And Jake, what I'm about to tell you will break your heart. Before we continue, let us know in the comment section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe." Jake stood there, his mind racing. This had to be some kind of joke, some corporate stunt. But the way she looked at him, like she'd been carrying a weight she couldn't bear anymore, that was real. "How did you even get in here?" His voice came out harder than he intended. "Your landlord gave me the key." Lara wiped her hands on a dish towel, and Jake noticed they were shaking. "I told him it was a company emergency. I'm sorry, I know this is..." "A company emergency?" Jake let out a bitter laugh. "You're the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. You don't do house calls. You don't clean employees' kitchens. So what is this really about?" Lara flinched, but she didn't look away. "You're right. I don't do house calls. I've spent the last 15 years building that company from the ground up, and somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing the people who actually make it run." She gestured toward his small kitchen table. "Please, sit down. I'd rather stand. Jake, it's Mr. Donovan to you." The words came out cold. "You've never spoken to me before today. You walk past me in the halls like I'm furniture, and now you're in my house acting like we're friends?" The silence stretched between them. Lara's composure cracked, just slightly. "You're right," she said softly. "I've been blind. Willfully blind." She pulled out a chair and sat down, her shoulders sagging. 2 days ago, I was going through some files, financial records that didn't add up. I started digging, and what I found..." She looked up at him. "Jake, do you know why you work 16-hour shifts while other technicians work 8? Jake's jaw tightened. "Because David says we're short-staffed." "You're not short-staffed. David's been pocketing the budget for 3 additional technicians for the past 2 years. He's been reporting phantom employees to corporate, collecting their salaries, and making you cover the workload." The words hit Jake like a punch to the gut. He gripped the back of a chair. "That's not all," Lara continued, her voice shaking now. "Your performance reviews, the ones that keep you from getting promoted, David's been falsifying them. I saw your real numbers, Jake. Your error rate is 0.3%. That's the best in the entire department. But David's been reporting it as 12%. Jake felt his legs go weak. He sank into the chair across from her. Why? His voice cracked. Why would he do that? Because you're good at your job. Too good. If corporate saw your real performance, they'd promote you. You'd be making what you deserve. And David would lose his cash cow. Someone skilled enough to do the work of 4 people without complaining. Jake's hands curled into fists on the table. 2 years. 2 years of killing himself. Of missing Sophie's school plays and parent-teacher conferences. Of collapsing on the couch every night, too exhausted to even make it to his bed. 2 years of believing he wasn't good enough. How long have you known? The question came out rough, accusatory. I found out 2 days ago. I confronted David yesterday morning. He denied everything, tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. Lara's eyes flashed with anger. So I brought in our internal audit team. By yesterday afternoon, I had proof, emails, payroll records, everything. And you fired him. He's suspended pending a full investigation. But Jake, she leaned forward. It's not just David. I've been going through records all night. This is happening in other departments too. Senior managers exploiting good employees, skimming budgets, falsifying reviews. And her voice broke. I built a system that allowed this to happen. I was so focused on quarterly earnings and shareholder value that I stopped seeing the people bleeding to make those numbers possible. Jake stared at her. In all the years he'd worked at Wilson Enterprises, he'd never seen Lara Wilson as anything but untouchable, cold, powerful. But sitting across from him now, with dark circles under her eyes and guilt written across her face, she looked devastatingly human. Why are you telling me this? He asked quietly. Why come to my house? Why clean my kitchen? Lara's eyes filled with tears. Because when I saw your file, when I saw what's been done to you, I realized something. You have a daughter, Jake. A 7-year-old girl who barely sees her father because he's too busy being exploited by my company. And your wife, she passed away 3 years ago? Jake nodded stiffly. You've been raising Sophie alone while working yourself to death for people who don't appreciate you. And She wiped at her eyes. I sat in my office last night, looking at your address, and I thought about calling, sending an email, having HR schedule a meeting. But none of that felt like enough. You deserved more than corporate speak and empty apologies. She gestured around his modest kitchen, the dishes she'd washed, the floors she'd swept, the coffee maker she'd cleaned. I know this doesn't fix anything. I know showing up here is intrusive and probably insane. But I needed you to see that I know. That I'm not hiding behind my title or my lawyers. That I'm willing to stand in your kitchen and face what my company has done to you. Jake felt something crack open in his chest. Anger, yes. But underneath it, something else. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. What happens now? He asked. Lara straightened, and Jake saw a flash of the CEO again, the woman who'd built an empire. Now I make this right. Jake sat back in his chair, studying Lara's face. The anger was still there, simmering beneath his ribs. But curiosity was winning out. Make it right how? He asked. You're going to fire David and call it a day? Write me a check and hope I forget about the last 2 years? No. Lara's voice was firm. I'm going to overhaul the entire system. New accountability measures, independent review boards, direct channels for employees to report abuse without fear of retaliation. She paused. And I'm offering you a position, Senior Operations Manager. 40% salary increase, real benefits, reasonable hours. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just like that? You wave your magic wand and suddenly I'm management? You've been doing management-level work for 2 years without the title or pay. I'm not doing you a favor, Jake. I'm correcting an injustice. Right. He stood up, pacing to the sink. And what do you get out of this? A feel-good story for the company newsletter? CEO saves struggling single dad? That's not fair, isn't it? Jake turned to face her. You said it yourself. You've been blind to this for years. And now suddenly you care? Forgive me if I'm skeptical about your timing. Lara stood too, her composure slipping. You think I don't know how this looks? You think I'm not disgusted with myself? Her voice rose. I built that company with my own hands. I worked 80-hour weeks. I sacrificed everything, relationships, health, any semblance of a normal life. And for what? So people like David could game the system while people like you suffer? Then why didn't you notice sooner? Because I stopped looking. The words burst out of her. I stopped walking the floors. I stopped talking to people who weren't executives. I convinced myself that if the numbers looked good, everything was fine. But numbers don't show you a man collapsing on his couch every night because he's too exhausted to put his daughter to bed properly. They don't show you someone skipping meals because they're not sure they can afford groceries and rent in the same week. Jake went still. How did you? Your file, your salary versus your expenses. It doesn't take a genius to do the math. Lara's voice softened. Jake, I'm not here because I want to feel better about myself. I'm here because I can't unsee what I saw, and I can't live with myself if I don't try to fix it. The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Jake wanted to stay angry. Anger was safe. Anger kept him from hoping, from trusting, from getting hurt again. But something in Lara's eyes, raw and vulnerable and utterly sincere, made it hard to hold on to. I don't need your pity, he said quietly. Good. Because I'm not offering pity, I'm offering respect and a partnership. Lara stepped closer. You know that company inside and out. You know where the problems are because you've lived them. Help me fix this, not just for you, but for everyone else stuck in the same trap. Jake crossed his arms. And if I say no, then you say no. I'll still make the changes. I'll still deal with David and anyone else who's been exploiting my employees. But it won't be as effective without someone who understands what it's really like down there. She met his eyes. I need you, Jake. The company needs you. And whether you believe it or not, I think you need this too. Before Jake could respond, he heard the front door open. Daddy? His heart stopped. Sophie wasn't supposed to be home until tomorrow. Small footsteps padded down the hallway, and then Sophie appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas, dragging her stuffed rabbit. His sister Karen appeared behind her, looking apologetic. Sorry, Jake. She woke up with a stomachache and wanted to come home. Sophie's eyes went wide as she spotted Lara. Daddy, who's that? Jake's mind went blank. How did you explain this? This is Mrs. Wilson. She works at my company. Sophie tilted her head, studying Lara with the unfiltered curiosity only a 7-year-old could manage. How come she's here? Are you having a meeting? Lara knelt down, bringing herself to Sophie's eye level. Hi, Sophie. Your dad and I were just talking about work stuff. I'm sorry if I interrupted your bedtime. It's okay. I don't feel good. Sophie clutched her rabbit tighter. You're pretty. Are you Daddy's friend? Something flickered across Lara's face. Surprise, then a softness Jake had never seen before. I'd like to be, Lara said gently. If that's okay with you. Sophie nodded seriously. Daddy doesn't have many friends. He's always too tired. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Out of the mouths of children came truths you couldn't escape. Karen cleared her throat. I'll get her some ginger ale. Jake, can I talk to you for a second? Jake followed his sister into the living room, leaving Lara and Sophie in the kitchen. Through the doorway, he could see Lara showing Sophie something on her phone. Probably pictures, judging by Sophie's delighted giggles. What's going on? Karen whispered. That's Lara Wilson, the Lara Wilson. Why is she in your house at 9 p.m.? It's complicated. Jake. Karen gripped his arm. Is everything okay? Are you in trouble? No. Maybe. I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair. She found out some things about work, bad things, and she's trying to fix them. Karen's eyes narrowed. What kind of bad things? The kind that explain why I've been working myself to death for pennies. His sister's expression shifted from concern to fury. Are you telling me they've been screwing you over? For 2 years, apparently. Those bastards. Karen looked back toward the kitchen, where Sophie's laughter rang out. And she came here to tell you that? Personally? Yeah. Huh. Karen studied his face. You like her? What? No, I don't even know her. Jake, I'm your sister. I know that look. She poked his chest. You're interested? She's my boss's boss's boss. She's way out of my league. And this isn't, she's just trying to fix a corporate problem. Uh-huh. Corporate problems don't usually involve washing dishes in your kitchen. Jake didn't have an answer for that. They returned to find Sophie sitting at the table with Lara, both of them drawing on the back of some paper Lara had pulled from her bag. Sophie was explaining, in elaborate detail, the difference between regular butterflies and magic butterflies. And the magic ones can grant wishes, Sophie said seriously. But only if you're really, really nice. That's a good rule, Lara said, adding details to her own butterfly sketch. What kind of wishes would you make? Sophie thought for a moment. I'd wish for Daddy to not be so tired. And maybe a puppy. But mostly the first one. Lara's hand stilled on the paper. She glanced up at Jake, and the look in her eyes made his chest ache. Karen touched his shoulder. I'm going to head out. Call me tomorrow, okay? After his sister left, Jake stood in the doorway, watching his daughter and his CEO draw butterflies like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sophie yawned, and Lara noticed immediately. I think someone needs to get to bed, Lara said softly. But I'm not sleepy, Sophie protested, even as another yawn betrayed her. Jake stepped forward. Come on, kiddo. Let's get you tucked in. Sophie looked between Jake and Lara. Will you still be here when I wake up? Lara glanced at Jake, uncertainty crossing her face. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so, Sophie said simply. I like you. After Jake put Sophie to bed, complete with 3 stories and 2 glasses of water, he returned to find Lara cleaning up the drawing paper. She'd folded Sophie's butterfly drawing carefully and set it aside. She's wonderful, Lara said quietly. You're raising an amazing kid. Thanks. Jake leaned against the counter. She doesn't usually warm up to people that fast. Kids are good judges of character, or so I'm told. Lara smiled sadly. I don't have much experience with them. No kids of your own? No husband, no kids, no life outside work, really. She looked down at her hands. I'm 31 years old, and I can't remember the last time I sat down and drew butterflies with someone. Can't remember the last time anyone told me they liked me just because. Jake felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't the untouchable CEO. This was just a woman who'd built walls so high, she'd forgotten how to let people in. "The job offer," he said slowly. "Is it real? Or is this some kind of corporate liability thing?" "It's real. I've already drafted the paperwork." "But Jake," she met his eyes, "I won't pressure you. If you want nothing to do with me or the company after this, I'll understand. I'll still make the changes. I'll still ensure you're compensated for what was done to you. But the choice is yours." Jake thought about Sophie's words. Daddy doesn't have many friends. He's always too tired. He thought about 2 years of killing himself for nothing. 2 years of believing he wasn't good enough. And he thought about the woman standing in his kitchen who could have sent an email or a lawyer, but instead showed up to wash his dishes and face him like a human being. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "But I need time. It's a lot." "Of course." Lara picked up her purse. "Take all the time you need. I'll have HR send over the details of what we're offering. No obligation." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Jake, for what it's worth, I meant what I said about needing you. But more than that." She turned back. "Thank you for letting me sit with Sophie tonight. I didn't realize how much I'd been missing until I saw it through her eyes." After she left, Jake stood in his quiet kitchen, staring at the butterfly drawing on his table. For the first time in 2 years, he felt something he'd almost forgotten: hope. 3 weeks later, Jake walked through the glass doors of Wilson Enterprises with his new security badge clipped to his shirt: Senior Operations Manager. The title still felt surreal. The changes had started immediately. David was gone. Fired after the full audit revealed he'd stolen over $200,000 in phantom salaries. 2 other department heads had been let go. And Lara had been true to her word. Independent review boards, anonymous reporting channels, company-wide audits. But it was the smaller changes that hit Jake hardest. The break room on the operations floor now had actual coffee, good coffee. The overtime policy had been rewritten, and every technician now had their real performance reviews on file. Jake's first week in management had been overwhelming. Learning new systems, meeting with teams, trying to figure out how to lead people who'd been his peers just days ago. But Lara had been there every step, not hovering, just present, available, real. And somewhere in those late-night strategy sessions and early morning coffee runs, something had shifted between them. His phone buzzed. A text from Lara. "Conference room B, 5 minutes. Bring coffee." Jake smiled despite himself and headed to the 3rd floor. Lara was already there, standing by the window overlooking the city, her blazer draped over a chair. She looked tired but lighter somehow, like she'd been carrying a weight and finally set it down. "You texted me for coffee?" Jake asked, holding up 2 cups. "You know there's this amazing invention called a coffee maker. I texted you because I wanted to see you." She took one of the cups, her fingers brushing his. "And because I have news." "Good news or bad news?" "Good. We've identified 12 more employees who are being exploited like you were. We're correcting their salaries and back-paying what they're owed." She took a sip. "It's costing the company $3 million. The board is furious. And you don't care." "I care that we're doing the right thing." Lara turned to face him fully. "The board will get over it, and if they don't, they can find a new CEO." Jake studied her face. "You'd really walk away? From the company I built? It would hurt, but yes." Her voice was steady. "I'd rather lose the company than lose myself again. I spent 15 years becoming someone I don't recognize. Someone who'd walk past good people suffering and not even notice." She paused, Someone who'd never sit at a kitchen table drawing butterflies with a 7-year-old. Sophie asks about you, almost every day. Something soft crossed Lara's face. Yeah? Yeah. She wants to know when you're coming over again. I keep telling her you're busy, but... Jake set down his coffee. She's not the only one wondering. The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. Jake, I know this is complicated. I know there are rules about fraternization and power dynamics and all that corporate stuff. But I can't stop thinking about you. The words came out in a rush. And not as my boss, as the woman who showed up at my house and was brave enough to admit she was wrong, as the person who sat with my daughter and made her laugh, as someone who's trying so damn hard to be better. Lara's eyes glistened. I think about you too. Constantly. About you and Sophie and what it felt like to be in your kitchen that night, feeling more like myself than I have in years. She took a shaky breath. But I'm terrified, Jake. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone's anything. I've spent my entire adult life alone. So have I. Since my wife died, it's just been me and Sophie. I forgot what it felt like to want something for myself. Jake stepped closer. But then you walked into my life, and suddenly I'm remembering. What if I mess this up? What if I'm too damaged, too focused on work, Then we figure it out together. Jake reached for her hand. I'm not asking for perfect, Lara. I'm just asking for real. She looked down at their joined hands, and a tear slipped down her cheek. Your daughter drew me a butterfly. I know, it's on my fridge. I cried when I got home that night. Cried because I'm 31 years old, and a 7-year-old's drawing made me feel more valued than a decade of board meetings and profit reports. She laughed wetly. How pathetic is that? It's not pathetic. It's human. Jake squeezed her hand. Come to dinner. Tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just me and Sophie and whatever I can manage to cook without burning. Lara looked up at him, hope and fear warring in her eyes. Are you sure? I'm terrified, but yeah, I'm sure. She nodded, a real smile breaking through. Okay, tomorrow night. The next evening, Jake burned the chicken. Of course he did. He'd been too nervous to focus, too busy making sure the apartment didn't look like a disaster zone. Sophie had helped, which meant her toys were now neatly organized in somewhat chaotic piles. When the doorbell rang at 6:30, Sophie sprinted for the door. I'll get it! I'll get it! Jake caught her before she could yank the door open. Easy, kiddo. Let's use our manners, remember? Sophie nodded seriously and opened the door with exaggerated care. Lara stood there in jeans and a soft sweater, holding a bakery box and looking just as nervous as Jake felt. Hi, Sophie. You came. Sophie threw her arms around Lara's waist. Daddy said you might be too busy, but you came. Lara's eyes met Jake's over Sophie's head, shimmering with emotion. I wouldn't miss it for anything. Dinner was chaotic. The chicken was definitely overcooked. The vegetables were somehow both mushy and undercooked. And Sophie spilled her juice twice. But Lara laughed, really laughed, when Sophie told her about the science project that exploded in class, and when Jake apologized for the 3rd time about the food. Lara just smiled and said it was perfect. After dinner, Sophie insisted on showing Lara her room. Every toy, every book, every drawing on her wall. Jake watched from the doorway as Lara sat cross-legged on the floor, giving Sophie her complete attention, asking questions like she genuinely cared about the difference between Sophie's favorite stuffed animals. This one's Mr. Hoppy. Sophie explained, holding up her worn rabbit. He was Mommy's when she was little. Daddy gave him to me after she went to heaven. Lara's expression softened. He must be very special then. He is. He helps when I'm sad. Sophie looked up at Lara with those two wise eyes. Do you get sad sometimes? Yes, sweetheart, I do. Do you have a Mr. Hoppy? Lara glanced at Jake, then back at Sophie. No, I don't think I do. Sophie considered this seriously, then held out a smaller stuffed bear. You can borrow Mr. Buttons. He's really good at making people feel better. Sophie, you don't have to. Lara started. I want to. Friends help friends, right? Lara's voice cracked. Right. She accepted the bear carefully, like it was made of glass. Thank you, Sophie. I'll take very good care of him. Later, after Sophie was in bed, Jake and Lara sat on the couch, a careful distance between them. She's incredible, Lara said softly, still holding the stuffed bear. You've done an amazing job with her. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together. That's called being a parent, or so I imagine. Lara turned the bear over in her hands. She offered me her stuffed animal, Jake. Do you know how long it's been since someone offered me comfort? Since someone saw that I was hurting and just tried to help. You deserve that. You deserve people who see you. I'm starting to believe that. Because of you. Because of her. Lara set the bear down carefully and turned to face him. I meant what I said yesterday. I don't know how to do this. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to work too late and forget to text back and probably say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And I'm going to be overprotective of Sophie and overthink everything and probably push you away when I get scared. Jake moved closer. But I want to try anyway. So do I. Lara reached for his hand. Jake, I need you to know something. This isn't about fixing my guilt or feeling better about myself. When I look at you, when I'm with you and Sophie, I feel like I'm finally becoming the person I was supposed to be all along. Jake lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Stay, he whispered. Not tonight, I know it's too soon. But stay in our lives. Be part of this, whatever this becomes. Lara's answer was to lean in and kiss him, soft and tentative and full of promise. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. I'm all in, Jake. Terrified, but all in. Over the next few months, Lara became a constant presence in their lives. Sunday morning pancakes, Sophie's soccer games, late-night talks after Sophie was asleep. It wasn't always smooth. There were arguments about work-life balance, moments when Lara's instinct to control everything clashed with Jake's fierce independence. But they worked through it, learning each other's patterns, building something real. 6 months after that first night, Jake came home to find Lara and Sophie in the kitchen, frosting cupcakes. Lara had flour on her nose, and Sophie was covered in sprinkles. What's all this? Jake asked. We made cupcakes, Sophie announced. Lara taught me how to make the frosting swirl. She's a natural, Lara said, smiling at Sophie with such open affection that Jake's heart ached. After Sophie went to bed, Jake and Lara cleaned the kitchen together, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of people who'd done this 100 times. She asked me something today, Lara said quietly, scrubbing frosting off the counter. Yeah? What's that? She asked if I was going to be her new mom. Jake's hand stilled in the soapy water. What did you say? I told her that I loved being part of her life and that families can look lots of different ways. Lara set down the cloth and turned to face him. But Jake, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to tell her that there's nothing I want more than to be part of this family. And that terrified me. Jake dried his hands and pulled her close. Why did it terrify you? Because I've never wanted anything this much. Because the thought of losing this, losing you and Sophie, is unbearable. And because she looked up at him, vulnerable and open. Because I'm in love with you, and I don't know what to do with that. Jake's breath caught. You love me? Completely. Terrifyingly. Absolutely. Lara's hands fisted in his shirt. I love your terrible cooking and the way you put Sophie first in everything, and how hard you fight for what's right. I love who I am when I'm with you. I love the family we're building. Jake kissed her then, deep and sure, pouring everything he felt into it. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. I love you too. I think I started falling for you that first night, when you stood in my kitchen and let yourself be vulnerable, when you chose honesty over pride. He cupped her face. You've changed my life, Lara. Both our lives. So what do we do now? Jake smiled. Now, we keep building, one day at a time, one burned dinner at a time, one butterfly drawing at a time. Lara laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. I can do that. From down the hall came Sophie's sleepy voice. Are you guys being mushy? I can hear you being mushy. They broke apart, laughing. Lara called back, go to sleep, sweetheart. Okay, but Lara? Yeah? I love you. Lara's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Jake, who nodded encouragingly, then called back, I love you too, Sophie. That night, as they sat together on the couch, Lara's head on Jake's shoulder, Jake thought about how far they'd come, from that shocking first night to this moment of quiet peace, from isolation to connection, from surviving to actually living. Thank you, Lara whispered. For what? For letting me in, for trusting me when I didn't deserve it, for showing me what actually matters. She laced her fingers through his. For teaching me that success isn't about what you build, it's about who you build it with. Jake kissed the top of her head, breathing in the moment, his daughter asleep down the hall, the woman he loved beside him, a future that finally felt full of possibility instead of just survival. Sometimes life surprised you. Sometimes your CEO showed up in your kitchen and changed everything. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to let the walls down and trust in the impossible, you found exactly what you'd been missing all along. A family, a partner, a home. Not perfect, but real. And that was more than enough. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for Soul Story. Drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and let us know in the comments what part of the story spoke to you most. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.